I learned very quickly that there's a whole other world, and so I got hooked up with a company that was pitching my songs for film and TV, here in Nashville, and that was a huge game changer for me for my career, because there's a lot of exposure that you can get as an independent artist from your songs being in film and TV. And
Hmm.
there's also, a good stream of income that I had never tapped into. Bringing it backward.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. This podcast is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the album that's coming out next month. Um, we kind of got, I mean, I heard a bit about your story in the first interview, so it'd be cool to just recap a bit and then obviously get into the new album.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's great.
Sweet. So I do remember your father's in like in academics, correct? Or he's a professor. So you kind
um,
of moved around a little bit.
yeah, so my dad is retired now, but he was in university administration. So he retired as a college president, of
Wow.
Moorhead State in Moorhead, Kentucky.
Very cool. Yeah, because I forgot. Oh, you were born in Johnson City, or you grew up in Johnson City?
I grew up in Johnson City. I was born in Normal, Illinois, and we moved to Johnson City, Tennessee because my dad got a job at East Tennessee State. So, yeah, we moved. We didn't move a lot, but we that was like our big move as a kid for me. So
Okay. How old are you when you moved to Johnson City? Do you remember?
I was about 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you moved there, and then eventually is that like Knoxville area? I can't remember. I think you said you lived in Knoxville as well.
Well,
I'm so
I
bad with like Tennessee. I moved here like 2.5 years ago, and I'm like I know like Nashville and then like
yeah,
some cities outside of it, but I'm so bad with geography.
that's all right. Where are you?
I'm in south of Nashville, like
Okay.
Thompson Station, Franklin area.
hmm Yeah, so Johnson City is really close to the border of Virginia and North Carolina.
Oh wow, so
So
way
way
out
way over
east.
there on the eastern side of the state, and I also lived in Knoxville, which is further west, closer to.
Oh,
Uh,
Knoxville. That's what I thought you lived in. I remember Knoxville. Okay.
yeah, but I've been in Nashville now since 2012.
Okay. And I can't remember, how did you get into music? I do recall you talking about singing, I think in the church, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So growing up, my family we went to a Methodist church, and I was in choir from the time I was, as super young. I don't know, like third, second or third grade, I guess.
Wow. Okay.
Up until I was a senior in high school, I just did it the whole time.
Hmm.
And so I got a lot of experience singing in church. And then when I let's see, when I moved uh, to college, or when I went to college, I started working at a summer camp during the summer, and the first time I went, I just noticed like everyone was playing guitar, and I was like, why can't I play guitar? I've never even tried. And so it was a huge inspiration, and I went home that weekend and got a guitar and brought it back to camp and didn't take it out of the case the whole week because I was like, I don't know how to play this. I don't even know why I have it. But it was such a good inspiration because so I was a camp counselor, and I was seeing all these other people playing pretty simple songs, all those campfire songs that are like G, C, and D. Maybe throw
Hmm.
an E minor in there every once in a while. Um, and I started picking stuff up from other people, and yeah, so it was a progression. I took a few guitar lessons, and as soon as I could play a few chords on the guitar, I really started to write because I don't know. I had a few of those kind of old timey songbooks, and I just wasn't that interested in learning that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
it was more fun for me to write my own songs, albeit they were probably bad, but that's okay.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So that camp really inspired you to want to learn how to play guitar. Were you always like writing poetry or anything like that prior, or was it when
Yeah.
you learned how to play some chords, it was, oh, I want to do the songwriting thing?
Yeah, I had always been writing. I love to write. When I was a kid, I wrote a lot of short stories. That was kind of my main medium, but I wrote poetry as well. And I mean, I say I didn't write songs. I, I didn't formally write songs, but I always walked around the house singing something. I was always singing something, and I was always making up the words. I see it in my own daughter these days. She does the same thing, and it's really fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a 7-year-old. He loves like just tinkering on the piano, and like
Yeah.
we got him a drum kit when the beginning of COVID because he just has like way too much energy. But we got him like an electric one, so he took some. When
You
we
can
moved to
hear it.
Nashville, he took some lessons. Yeah, I didn't want him to like when we were in San Diego, we lived in a townhome, and I'm like, I don't want him to like my neighbors like literally want to kill me. So
Yeah.
we got an electric kit, the kit, but when we moved here, he's got lessons, which is he enjoys that quite a bit.
That's
That's
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad he's interested in music because I'm not. I can play guitar and some piano chords, but it was never anything I wish I had that like skill set from an early age.
Mhm. Yeah, me too. I mean, gosh, it's never too late to learn a new skill, but yeah, there's so many things that I wish I was better at. I wish I was fluent in Spanish.
Oh, sure. So that's another
Yeah,
one for me too. I wish I could
really?
speak Spanish fluently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a goal of mine. I keep writing it in my long-term goals, and I keep like not making it a short-term goal. So I need to work on that. But yeah, I mean, I wish I was a better piano player. I wish I could play the drums too. Maybe your son can give me a lesson. You know.
Yeah. Anytime.
Yeah, but we can do it. We're still
We're
able
still
to learn
young.
new things.
Yeah. So was the guitar the first instrument then you learned how to play? I mean, obviously you're in vocal lessons or chorus choir, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But when it came to like an actual instrument, was the guitar the first one that you started to play?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I've played it ever since.
Hmm.
I've tried my hand at a few other things. I played a little bit of banjo at one point. My daughter has a ukulele. I pick that up every once in a while.
Oh, cool.
I play a little bit of piano.
Hmm.
But yeah, guitar's my always been my main thing.
Okay. And I do recall, I think that's where you met Sam and you guys kind of started Everybody Fields was at after the camp or was it at the camp? I don't really remember.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, when I was working at this camp as a counselor, Sam Quinn was also a counselor there, and we met and started singing together immediately. He'd already been playing guitar and writing songs for a while at that point, and he was a huge inspiration because his voice was so beautiful and his songwriting and playing was so beautiful. Um, and then we realized that we went to the same college. We both went to East Tennessee State University. So um, we hung out, and after camp was over, we hung out just, as friends or whatever
Hmm.
around Johnson City. And we started playing a little bit of music together. But what really inspired us to get together as a band was we had a mutual friend named David Ritchie, and David was had a show booked at this venue in Johnson City, and he asked me to play with him. And Sam was like, "Wait, what about me?" and so, and so, yeah, we Sam was kind of like, "I mean, I think we need to start a band," and I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So we did. We started a band, me, Sam, and David Ritchie, and it was called the Everybody Fields, and we released 3 albums. It was a very cool band. We had a really unique sound,
Hmm.
and that was from 2003 to like 2009.
Yeah, you're a band for a while. You toured and did the whole like I mean that whole thing. Was that something like when you were still in college, did the band start to grow and then you all were like, wow, this is something we could really pursue? Like how
Actually,
did that
it was after college for me.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I was working full time at an outpatient mental health facility.
Hmm.
Um, and I was working with children and youth. I was a case manager there. So I was like, every morning I was driving 45 minutes to Greenville, Tennessee to to work with kids, and I had to be there at 8 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And that was tricky because I was also simultaneously like touring and playing in like Boone, North Carolina and Asheville and just, just kind of the local regional circuit. But I was really, I was struggling to do both because I was really busy and I loved my job, but I ended up I ended up quitting because I just couldn't do it all, and that was the beginning of my full-time musical career. I just was like, well, I don't have anything else going, so let's pursue this.
hmm Was that a? It must have been a tough decision to make. Like, okay, like I have this job that's pretty secure, and then there's this band thing happening. Do we put it all towards the band? Do you remember making that choice?
I don't remember. I think the hardest part of the decision was, I was a constant in these kids' lives.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's
and
tricky.
I definitely felt conflicted about moving on from them because I really cared for them a whole lot.
hmm
But I felt like I wasn't doing the job as well as I could have been had it been my primary focus. So I just kind of let it go and let somebody else take that position.
hmm
But beyond that, I don't remember it being a very hard choice because I was so young. I was in my early 20s, and I just I didn't really have anything to lose.
hmm And it was probably the band thing was probably pretty exciting. I mean, as
Yeah.
performing and singing your entire life, and then this thing's happening, and you get to tour and write songs, and that you guys were a band for a bit of time, and you put some records out, and that ended up disbanding. Is that when you started to put out records as start your solo career at that point?
Yeah, so we broke up as a band in 2009, and I had this period of at least a year. Well, I guess we probably broke up in 2008. Gosh, I don't know. Anyways, I had at least a
One of
year
those years.
of trying to figure out what to do with my life. I had a baby in 2009, my son Nico, and that was a big reason why I quit the band. It was not a healthy place to be. No one was, no one else in the band was like, um, well, everyone in the band was like in party mode, and
Right.
I couldn't be in party mode, and I really needed to take care of myself and take care of my little bae. But yeah, so I quit, and I had about a year of floundering. I was
Well,
in
momming, you
Nashville.
know.
Yeah, momming and also just going, what am I doing with my life? I had no backup plan whatsoever. I was hanging up show posters for a show promoter in Knoxville, and it was such a weird full circle situation because those posters used to have me on them.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then I was like pushing my baby in a stroller throughout the town, hanging up show posters for other people's shows. It was so strange. And I was teaching guitar lessons. So those were the only two things that I did, and I think I made like $50 hanging up those show posters every week. And I and you know, I only had like 3 guitar students, so you can see that I
Oh,
wasn't making a
wow.
lot of money. I was just
Yeah.
like trying to figure it out. But I had some really good friends that encouraged me to pursue my own music. And for some reason, I don't know, when I was on my own, it hadn't really occurred to me to just start my own thing. For
Mhm.
whatever reason, I think I was just really afraid to take that leap, because I get really overwhelmed by huge things, and
Mhm.
starting a solo career without any support was a really overwhelming thing for me. Um, but yeah, I had some friends in Knoxville that are like, "What are you doing? What's happening? Like you were so good, and why are you hanging up show posters?" And I was like, "Okay, yes." And those friends of mine were musicians, and they said, "We're coming over to your house next week, and I'm gonna bring a whole band, and we're gonna play." And I was like, "Okay."
Wow. And then is that kind of what then formed to put out, you, because you put out an EP in 2009, I believe, your
Yeah,
self-titled EP.
yeah,
And with that, like, okay, you have this, you're starting this solo thing, and then what kind of builds, or how does it start to, get some traction or move forward? At that point, was that were you playing shows, those shows that you're hanging the posters up for, like, okay, I'm gonna play here in Knoxville and try to get this thing off the ground, like, from that point forward, how did you, like, was there like a moment that kind of changed that, or?
yeah. It was small steps, you know. It's always been small steps. Just so those guys came over. We played together. It sounded really good, and it was really exciting for me. And
Mhm.
those guys, I was like, "Can you guys play with me?" You know, and
Yeah.
because I'd never really hired people to play with me. It was always just like, these are the people I play with because I'm in a band. So
Mhm.
they were very willing, and I don't know. We just kind of got it going from there, and started booking shows, and just one thing after another, you know.
Mhm. And then you end up moving to Nashville, during that time, like, a bit after that time period, or you had
Yeah,
your solo thing going for a while and then made the move to Nashville?
yeah. I moved to Nashville. My son Nico and I moved to Nashville in 2012, and um, I had a manager that lived here in Nashville um, that was encouraging me to come because of just like the music business world here.
Mhm.
Um, that's such a huge part of how musicians make their living or can make their living. It was a thing that I'd never tried. I mean, as far as I knew, the way to make money as a musician was to sell records and to tour, and that's really
Mhm.
the only plan that I had. But um, I learned very quickly that there's a whole other world, and so I got hooked up with a company that was pitching my songs for film and TV here in Nashville, and that was a huge game changer for me for my career, because there's a lot of exposure that you can get as an independent artist from your songs being in film and TV, and
Mhm.
there's also, you know, a good stream of income that I had never tapped into. Um,
Yeah, because if you get those syncs, I mean,
Waiting.
that's huge, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, some of them are very huge. But yeah, so it was really helpful for me. I was finally like making my way. You know, I was doing
yeah.
well.
What was, like, the first kind of big, like, I mean, not on I mean, getting a sync in general is a massive accomplishment, but what was, like, a big one you're like, "Whoa, this, you know, really changed," or people are not only hearing your song on this show or whatever it may be, but then searching you out and wanting to, become a fan of yours just based off of maybe something they heard on a show?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I was most impacted by was I had a song called Rust or Gold, which is from my album The War Inside.
Mhm.
That song was on Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, I was thinking to myself, I was gonna say, did you ever sing on Grey's Anatomy? I swear that show was, like, such a tastemaker show, it's crazy.
It still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, so that was the first one, and I threw a party. I was so excited. And that song it was so that album wasn't done yet. So that was a huge way for me to be able to pay for that album. I mean, that really helped. Um and that album took years to make. So it's a very expensive process, but um Yeah, that was just such a game changer for me. And it was kind of one of those things where I could call my parents and be like, look, I did it. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
All the worries, all the sleepless nights you've had worrying about me, me and my, me being a single mom over here with your sweet grandchild. He's gonna
You
be okay.
know. So was that for the Warren side? That's the album that um you were
That
able
was
to
fully funded.
fund based off of the Grey's Anatomy thing?
Yeah, I mean that was a way that I partially funded it.
Yeah, partially funded it.
Hmm.
But the album before that, The Mirror, you had a like a Kickstarter, right? I mean, you were able to raise money on a Kickstarter. That's so impressive as in itself to have that many people being like that you're really talented. We want to invest our money because we know that you could make a great record from that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, gosh, and that was kind of the beginning of fan funding stuff.
Hmm.
That was the first time I'd ever done it, and it blew me away that there were that many people out there that wanted to support me in that way. It was amazing, and especially for an independent artist, it's like I didn't have a label that was giving me money. It was all my money going into it. So
Hmm.
it was just kind of a way for me to like pre-sell my album, and
Sure.
it was awesome. Yeah.
That's so cool. And then yeah, I mean, you put that album in 2015, or the Warren side, and you had the big sync. And were you just like supporting the album? Like, were you able to tour? I mean, it must have been difficult having your son and doing the kind of juggling both of those things.
Yeah. I mean, looking back on it, it's a little bit of a blur,
Sure.
honestly, and a little unfortunately, because you don't want to look at your life as a blur ever, but um, yeah. I mean, he was in school. I got him in a great school, and he was just doing great. We were in
Awesome.
a sweet little apartment in East Nashville that was very walkable, and we were safe. Um, And so I was able to work, every day because he was in school, and I don't know, it just all worked out. It's
Mhm.
still all working out.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And then around 2015 is when you met Peter, and you guys eventually started Hush Kids and put a record out or two records out. Because last time I talked to you, uh, you had put out or you're about to put out, I think Weatherman from
Hmm.
2021. Um, so yeah, I mean, was that a project that you guys were working together? I know you did records on as a solo artist around 2020 as well, but there's kind of a gap there. Was it mainly because you guys were working on those first that first album with Hush Kids?
Yeah, like a gap in my own.
Yeah, and your own solo project, not as an artist, but just as you were putting out records under just Jill Andrews.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I I was very, very focused on Hush Kids for a while. It was just kind of like the main thing that I was working on. And then after we released that album, I was like, okay, I really need to get back to my own stuff. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think I've kind of at this point just felt like there's a better rhythm to everything,
Hmm.
Um, because I love working with Peter. Um, definitely, he's amazing. Um, but I also really love putting out my own stuff and really focusing on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you put out two EPs in 2021. Was that like all like? I mean, you had a lot of music, obviously. You did that Hush Kids record, and then you put out two EPs in the same year. And I mean, that's that must have been a lot of like writing. You must have had a lot to say around that point.
Well, the EPs that I put out in 2021, they actually were not new songs. It was an interesting time. We were in the heart of
Pandemic,
the
yeah.
pandemic, and I was like everybody else trying to figure out what to do with my life and what to do with my career and how to make it all work. And um, I just had an idea that I just had a lot of songs kind of laying around that had already been recorded, but I'd never released them.
Oh, okay.
And so one of them that I released was Ellen.
Hmm.
which is it was a lot of old recordings from like when I first moved to Nashville. So, yeah, kind of just an older sound, but songs that I love. And then I released Vultures, which is a bunch of songs that I had laying around that I had worked with different producers, and it's more electronic.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because
it's definitely different than your other albums for sure.
yeah, I mean, in the co-writing world here in Nashville, I do a lot of co-writing, and in the co-writing world, I'm writing all kinds of songs, songs
Hmm.
that no one will ever hear unless I choose to, unless I choose to put them out or if they land in a
Another artist.
show or
Y-
whatever.
Yeah. And so you have an album coming out next month,
Yeah,
Modern Age, and just the
August 8th.
story. Yeah, the story that I read about it. I mean, I'll let you obviously tell it, but it sounds like there was, something major happened, and that kind of what sparked you to write this record. Tell me about the album.
Yeah, so um, a few years ago, one of my friends passed away. She was a childhood friend. We grew up in the same neighborhood. I lived in this cul-de-sac, and she lived in this cul-de-sac. I mean, we were so
Oh,
close together.
yeah.
And we rode the bus together. Um, and we were just really good friends. We had lost touch in our adulthood. We'd kept up some, like I played at her wedding and stuff like that, but but at that period of time we hadn't really kept up with each other too well. And um I so I had heard that she had passed away, and she had she had such a hard go of it. She had gone through recovery for a while. I mean, she was an addict at one point in her life, and
Mhm.
she'd gone through a period of recovery, and then she'd kind of fallen back into.
Oh man, I'm in recovery, so like that's what really like when I was reading that. I didn't know if I wasn't gonna say it until you wanted to bring up the story, but yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of people go back out, and some of them don't, make it. It's unfortunate. It's just it's hard. I mean, it's a disease, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and so I went back to Johnson City. I don't really have ties in Johnson City anymore. My family doesn't live there. And I mean, I have some friends from high school and that I grew up with. So I still have some friends there, but I don't go back very often. And
mhm.
during that period of time, I went and sang at her memorial service. Um, and I don't know. I spent a lot of time on that trip really really like wandering through the city and kind of reliving some of my childhood memories, like walking my old neighborhood and the place I used to ride bikes and the fields I used to run in as a kid and the place where my cat is buried, and just stuff like that. I spent a lot of time in that town, and it it just kind of brought this whole wave of memories back to me, and I just wanted to write about it. So that's where Modern Age, my new record, that's kind of the origin story of it.
Mhm.
It's a lot about those memories as a kid, but like looking back from where we are now, and it's I guess it's probably for everybody, but I never could in a million years could have imagined how much life has changed, um, for everyone
Mhm.
from when I was a kid to now. And I mean, I attribute that so much to technology.
Oh yeah.
Things I never would have ever imagined, that are such a part of our daily life now, like the iPhone. It's changed our culture in so many ways, some good and some horrific.
Mhm.
And as a parent, like I guess I was writing this album kind of like in this like where I am now as a parent, looking back and really feeling a loss for just how simple things were. I mean, they weren't simple for everybody, but fortunately, when I look back on my life, it was pretty damn simple,
Mhm.
and happy, and yeah, and there's a futuristic sort of element to this record. The album cover is has a picture of me, and I have this like globe over my head, and a lot of people have questioned me like, what is that? I worked with a photographer named Fairlight Hubbard. I've worked with her pretty much exclusively for everything. She's so good, so creative, and I just love her. And we were spitballing a bunch of ideas and, things that are kind of nostalgic. And she came up with this idea to have this globe over my head that was kind of like this futuristic viewfinder.
Mhm.
And if you look really closely in the picture in the globe, there are pictures like pasted on the globe of
I'm looking at.
me when I was younger with some of my friends, and just
Oh
like
wow!
memories. Yeah, it's really cool because a lot of people haven't noticed
I
it.
didn't notice that at all, and I've looked at the album cover a handful of
Oh
times.
yeah, I mean it's only been on a thumbnail on like on the internet, you know?
Yeah.
But
Oh wow! Yeah, I. Oh my gosh! Yeah, there's like a picture of you like at a dance,
yeah.
and like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, I didn't. I would have if you wouldn't have said that, I would have never noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea behind that and kind of the theme of the album is it is kind of like modern age is kind of like in a way it's like space age because it's the modern age that we live in feels so futuristic
Right.
to where I grew up, you know? Um like the advent of AI and just all of
That's
it. Just all
mind
of it.
blowing. The AI stuff.
It's all crazy to me. Um and so there's a lot of elements like musical elements in this record that feel more futuristic too, I think, and also at the same time like nostalgic. It's kind
Mhm.
of a strange mix.
That's great. I mean, that's a cool. The album cover still tripping me out. I didn't even notice that before, but
Yeah,
yeah. I sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say I'm gonna be on a billboard
Are
in
you really?
Nashville. Yeah, this is
Oh
like
wow.
yeah, so I'm really excited and it's going to be huge. And so I'm really excited because I think it'll be more obvious, that there's pictures in the globe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You'll have to let
Well,
me know.
now that you
Yeah.
said it, I could see it from the thumbnail, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
it was just like, you just take a glance at it and you're like, "Oh, cool. She's got, it's kind of like an astronaut." I was thinking it was more of like an astronaut helmet. But
Yeah,
now it makes obviously you describing it makes a lot more sense, and now I'm seeing it just even in the thumbnail but
yeah,
before I just kind of glanced over, I was, "Oh, that's just the glare from the lighting or whatever." But no.
right.
Wow, where's the billboard going to be? I need to drive by it.
Yeah, you should. It's gonna be where I think it's where 40 and 24 split right before the Cumberland River.
Oh, wow, that's a good ideal location.
Yeah, if that is, I'm probably worse at geography than you are, but if that
I
if
don't know.
that's accurate, what I just said, yeah, it's an amazing location. So it's only gonna be up for 2 weeks because that's all I could get. Because it's
It's
coveted,
per
highly
yeah.
coveted.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's so awesome. Is this gonna be the first time you'll be on a billboard?
Yeah, it is, and I've been kind of kicking around the idea for years. So this time I was just like, I'm going for it. My husband did like a ton of research, um, because he was like, this would be so cool, and so he like helped me find a really good location, and yeah, he was really helpful.
That's so awesome. Yeah, once you find it, I'm sure you'll post about it or something, but I'm gonna drive by it when when it's up.
Yeah, send me a pic, but don't like get in a wreck or anything.
I'll be in the passenger seat.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the concept, everything you're talking about is so true as far as my upbringing. We're of similar age, and it's like, yeah, you just went outside and you just came. Like, there's no way, and it terrifies me now. If I just said, to my son, like, you can go outside and just come back. It's like
Yeah.
I would like that need to know exactly where he is at every moment of the day just wasn't even a thing. I mean, we
Yeah.
would just somehow end up, so far from the house and
Yeah.
call my mom, call your parents on the like collect. I remember you'd call collect and be like, pick me up at blah blah blah, like when it's like say your name. And so
Oh
they
my
didn't have
god.
to like accept charges.
I never did that. That is hilarious.
So it's just such a different world now. It's like we need to know where everybody is, and then AI, people are making like their headshots on AI. I'm like, this is so crazy. I can't even believe this.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
was the like? Was there a song that you wrote and you're like, okay, like kind of taking in all of that and putting a song down and being like, this, I have a clear vision of I want to write an album and I want to use like this kind of idea behind it.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a song called 80s Baby, which is actually coming out pretty soon as a single before the album comes
Oh,
out.
cool. I have the track listing here, but so I think that's the first song on the record too.
It is, yeah. And yeah, I wrote that song with Peter Gronwald actually from Hush
Uh,
Kids.
oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I wrote 3 songs on this album with him. So he's always a part of what I'm doing.
That's cool.
I like to keep him in the mix, but yeah, that song is it's so much about what I was talking about. Just the simplicity of my own personal experience as a child in the 80s, comparing it to now. But
Mhm,
it's mostly just a nostalgic kind of moody song. Just yeah, just missing some of those simple times.
mhm. And so the album's coming out, and then you're doing a tour to support it. I know. Well, you're going overseas too. You're doing like the UK.
Yeah.
That's I'm sure that'll be really exciting. But you're playing Nashville, and you're doing a lot of the from Atlanta and North Carolina, like this kind of southern eastern realm of the country, which that's really awesome. And then going to the UK.
Yeah, and I have a lot more tour dates that are in the works right now. Like, because right now it's mostly just like what you were saying, kind of North Carolina, Georgia, more like regional stuff. But I'm gonna be hitting the West Coast and the
Wow.
Northeast and Midwest. All I'm gonna just be trying to hit all of it eventually. During the next year or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
not on the road
exciting.
all the time, but I'm like on the road a good bit. And yeah, I'm super excited about going back to the UK. This will be my second time, and I'm actually going over there twice in the next few months because I'm playing a festival in August. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Very, very cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Are you working on Hush Kids stuff as well? Or I know you just put a record out a couple years ago with that, but is that something that's you're always kind of working on, or is that just like a passion project that happens when it happens?
Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to get together and write, um, and that's kind of where it's at right now. Just
Mhm.
kind of gathering songs, and when you have enough, when we have enough, I'm sure we'll do something with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jill, for doing this again. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adam. It was really, really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, I can't wait to see your billboard.
Thank you. See
I
ya.
have one more question for you. I asked this last time, but I'm going to ask again. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Um, that's a good question. I would say I would say just like the most important thing that I've done is just to not compare myself to other people as much as possible. I mean, it's absolutely impossible not to ever do it, but I think there's so much effort and so much emphasis put on like marketing yourself and self promotion these days that was not around when I first started playing music. And there was opportunity for space and creativity that there is not anymore. And so just creating that space for yourself, I think, is really important because the most important thing you can do as an artist is create things that you're proud of. And the marketing of yourself and everything is important, but it's way less important than what you're actually creating.